Welcome to another video from Gweilo 60. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit of a controversial subject, but maybe not controversial to everybody out there, but controversial to the Chinese people around the world. Got a comment from CHSI. I'm not sure how to say it or what it means, the person's name, at least online name, and it was talking about racism that this person and this person's family have been enduring over the last while because of the rhetoric and the racism and the politicians pushing racism and mainstream media pushing racism against the Chinese people. Over the history, modern history, going back 100 or 200 years, the Chinese have endured racism from countries around the world, from the governments of these countries around the world. I know Canada and the United States used to have head taxes. It started out, I think, at $5 a head for Chinese people, only Chinese people, nobody else. And because it didn't stop the Chinese people from coming into these countries, they kept raising. It ended up about $500 per person, and back in those days $500 was a whack of cash, so and the $500 didn't stop them either. So what did they do? They introduced an exclusion act that excluded Chinese people from emigrating into the Western world, into the United States, into Canada type thing. Okay, so racism against the Chinese is not new, and the Chinese people have endured it over the course of modern history. When they were allowed to come into places like the United States and Canada, they were only allowed to have menial jobs. Yes, laborer jobs, working on a railroad, working on a railroad. They weren't allowed to become lawyers or doctors or anything high-end. And this was actually the law back then, that they just weren't allowed to do that. Chinese were looked at as subhuman. And that racism, that systemic racism, has followed them through their lives, through the 19th, 20th, and now into the 21st century. And it's sad to watch, because it shows that we haven't learned anything over the last couple hundred years. We haven't learned how to deal with other races as equals in the Western world. And it comes from the top down. That's what makes it the scariest thing, is it's no different than what the Jews were going through in World War II. It started out with hate being spewed by the leaders of countries, one country. Now it's more than one country. You've got people being accosted in Australia. You've got people being attacked in the United States. You've got people in Canada being verbally abused and attacked in Canada. It's embarrassing at this point in time to be a Canadian, because watching this stuff is sick and demeaning to the Chinese people around the world. I got a comment from a subscriber, a viewer, a commenter on my channel, and that's what spurred this particular video. And the idea that people in this day and age that are legal immigrants to a country like Canada have to endure the bullshit that these people have had to endure. I actually saved this comment so I could read it to you, and it's going to take me a little while because Al Dunn took my sped written course a long time ago. As a Chinese Canadian who spends equal years of my life in both Qingdao and Vancouver, a few more in Vancouver to be precise, I feel really sad and also a bit scared seeing what's happening in Vancouver and all the opinions about us. My family earned the money without any involvement with the CCP, which makes their work extremely hard because it's in China. I never get to spend my childhood with them, and when I did, I see them working day and night. We immigrated to Canada legally and paid the money for it. My parents bought their house and one of my childhood home legally with the money they gained from working hard. Now we are facing white people pointing middle finger at us from their cars, shouting out dirty words at us on the SkyTrain, slamming the door in front of us for no reason. We are seeing hate crimes towards Asians rise and seeing other Asian Canadians, such as Koreans and Japanese, wearing a sign that reads, "I'm not Chinese," when they go to the supermarket. So you see, this systemic racism is even in Canada, and Asian people, not just Chinese people, but Asian people are seeing it and experiencing it to the point where Canadian citizens of Asian descent are wearing signs that say, "I'm not Chinese," to go to the supermarket so they won't be harassed, verbally abused, sometimes physically abused by other people. And this comes from the higher ups. This comes from, yes, the rhetoric from politicians, whether that be Trump in the United States, whether it be conservatives that say, "Oh, we're going to be harder on China." When they do that, what they're doing is they're spreading racism against Asian people, against Chinese, to the people of those countries, whether they know it or not. Whether they understand it or not. I'm thinking they're pretty smart cats to be up there, so obviously they do understand what they're doing. Then they let the mainstream media do exactly the same thing. They vilify not only the Chinese government but the Chinese people, and as they do that, they vilify all of the Asian people around the world. And it's not just in Canada, it's not just in the United States, it's not just in Australia or Spain, it's not just in the UK, it is everywhere in the world, and it's being perpetrated by the politicians and the mainstream media, and this shit's got to stop. The Chinese thought that they'd seen it all. When the new politically correctness started to come on the stage here back, say around 2000, they figured, oh, maybe this is all over. Maybe the racism against the Chinese people was over. The racism against basically all Asian people was at an end because it was politically incorrect to be a racist pig. A pig, you know what I mean? And they figured that it was going to stop. Well, after COVID-19, it got even worse. Not only were students being ejected from universities in places like the United States, but getting visas and student permits was becoming harder. Chinese students were starting to be discriminated against on campuses, not only by the administration of the universities, not only by the government, not only by the mainstream media, but by the teachers, by the faculty of those universities, because it was now politically correct to be racist against Asian people, and especially the Chinese people. Now that COVID-19 came on the scene here last December, it has even become more politically correct to be racist against the Chinese people. Not just the government, but yes, the Chinese people, because as you build rhetoric against China, you build rhetoric and racism against the Chinese people. And we see it on the news. The Chinese people in China see it on the news. We hear from family and friends around the world that it's happening to them on a regular basis. Comments like I just read you make it so it's not something in the past anymore. Political correctness did not fix it, and now it's politically correct to be racist against the Chinese people. Go figure, eh? And you know, this racism has taken the final step when it's not just the politicians that are spreading it, it's not just the mainstream media that's spreading it, but it's the people on the street, the people that have fed into this bullshit that the politicians and the mainstream media is perpetrating because they're incompetent. They want to hide their incompetence by making somebody else the bad guy on the block, and that's exactly what they're doing to the Chinese people. It's making them responsible for their incompetence in dealing with their economy, their incompetence about dealing with their people, their incompetence about dealing with COVID-19, and the only thing that they can do is take that blame and stick it on somebody else's back. And that's exactly what they're doing. And it's sad to see that the leaders of what they call a free world are making it not a free world. for a lot of the people. And a lot of these people are Canadian citizens, American citizens, UK citizens that were born and raised in these countries. And they're the ones being taken advantage of. They're the ones that are being discriminated against in their own country of origin. But it didn't just stop with the government. It didn't just stop with the people. It didn't stop with the students. Oh, they went a step further, and now they're targeting Chinese companies, Huawei, ZTE. You know, not only are they targeting Chinese companies, but they're targeting people that work for these Chinese companies, like Meng Wanzhou, arbitrarily arresting people because of their involvement with Chinese companies. When the people out there that are sort of being dicks and feeding into the racism, if they only understood that the Chinese people are the same as you and me, their mothers, their fathers, their lawyers, their doctors, their sisters, their brothers, they're ballet dancers and students. They're exactly the same as we are, and they should be treated exactly the same as we treat our family, our friends, the people that you've grown up with. Racism has no place in this world, and this is directed at our politicians in the West. And if you perpetrate racism, as you have done in the recent past, people shouldn't vote for you, because as they vote for you, they are acknowledging that racism against Asian people, and Chinese in particular, is a good thing. And we all know it's not. So quit voting for these assholes. So as this hate and racism is spread around the world, the Chinese people have to deal with it. I guess the Western politicians, the Western media, they're not going to deal with it. They're going to fuel it. They've got a gas can there, and they're going to put a little bit more gas on the fire to serve their own needs. If Trump wants to get reelected, he's got to make somebody else responsible for his incompetence, and the Chinese people and the Chinese government are the target on this one, and it's sad to watch. Anyway, that's another video from Gweilo 60. What a rant this one was, guys? But I'm pissed off. Like I see it and I hear it, and it's something that we don't see or hear that much about in China, in mainland China, because hey, we're in China. But when I start getting these comments from Chinese people, and this isn't the first comment, and it won't be the last comment that I've got that says that we're being discriminated against in our own country now, because now citizens, and you know what I mean, or people even born and bred there. It's sad. It's one of those things. But I could go on for hours. Anyway, as I said, this is another video from Gweilo 60. If you like this video, as always, like, comment, subscribe, push that share button. Thanks for watching. Hit the bell. Don't forget to resubscribe. Don't forget to put a couple of bucks on the children's Patreon account. It's for a good cause. Poor rural Chinese children. They just need a helping hand, and we can help them. Help me help them. Thanks for watching. Bye now.